started your day feeling wonderful, only to have one interaction completely shift your energy. Maybe it was a conversation. Maybe it was a crowded room. Maybe it was a place that just didn't feel right. You walked in feeling like yourself and walked away feeling exhausted. There are simple things you can do in those moments to help yourself reset and come back to center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nasreen. If you're new here, we explore Reiki, energy healing, mindfulness, and simple ways to bring more balance into everyday life. Today's video is part 2 of our discussion on Jaki. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I do recommend watching that first because that's where we explored what Jaki is, how it can show up in our lives, and 5 places it tends to collect in the home. In part 1, we talked about how Jaki isn't something to fear. Just like the word Reiki, it's one of those Japanese words that doesn't translate perfectly into English. For our purposes, you can think of it as heavy, stagnant, or unsettled energy. Something we may feel in ourselves, in other people, or in the spaces around us. Today, we are taking the next step. What do we do when we suddenly feel drained, when a space feels uncomfortable, or when we've picked up energy that simply doesn't feel like our own? This topic was originally shared by Yoko on our Japanese channel, and today I'll be sharing some of the simple practices she recommends for helping us reset our energy and return to a more balanced state. And for those of you who may have already watched Yoko's original Japanese version, I'll also be sharing some of my own experiences and perspectives along the way, and how these practices show up in my everyday life. One thing I really appreciate about Yoko's approach is that these practices are simple. You don't need special abilities. You don't need years of training. And in most cases, you don't even need any tools. Many of these techniques can be done in just a few seconds. Whether you're at home, at work, traveling, or simply having one of those days where you feel a little off. And as with everything we talk about on this channel, I encourage you to approach these practices with curiosity. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to force anything. Just try them. Notice how you feel. And over time, you'll discover which ones resonate most with you. The first technique Yoko recommends is surprisingly simple. Clapping. In Japan, this is something many people are familiar with from visiting a shrine. Before offering an inori, what many people would simply call a prayer, it's common to clap as part of the ritual. It's such a natural part of Japanese culture that many people don't stop to think about it. But Yoko suggests that clapping can also be used as a quick way to reset your own energy. If you're in a place that feels heavy, if you've just had an interaction that left you feeling drained, or if you simply want to clear your head and start fresh, try clapping your hands. Not softly, but with a clear, crisp sound. Yoko says she often prefers 4 claps rather than 2 because for her it creates a stronger feeling of clarity and release. As I was listening to Yoko talk about this, it reminded me of experiences I've had in group settings before celebrations or special events. Everyone claps together. And suddenly the atmosphere changes. The energy becomes more focused, more connected, more alive. Now, that's not exactly the same thing as the shrine practice Yoko is referring to, But it does make me wonder if there is something about sound, a rhythm, and intention that helps us shift our state very quickly. So the next time you're alone and feeling a little heavy, try it. Just a few clear claps. And then pause for a moment and notice how you feel. The second technique is laughter. Now, Yoko talks about actually laughing out loud. And if you've ever laughed so hard that you completely forgot what was bothering you a few minutes earlier, you've probably experienced how powerful that can be. But let's be honest. If you are standing at a bus stop, walking through a shopping mall, or waiting at a traffic light, suddenly bursting into laughter might get you a few strange looks. So, I like to share a variation of this that has worked for me. Many years ago, when my son was younger, I used to encourage him to do something very simple whenever he was upset or frustrated. I would tell him to turn his frown into a smile. Not because it magically solved the problem, but because it often changed how he felt about the problem. And then one day I caught myself doing the exact opposite. I was frustrated. I was frowning. And I had been carrying that mood around longer than I realized. So I remembered my own advice. I relaxed my face, turned the frown into a smile, and almost immediately something shifted. The situation hadn't changed, but my energy had. My perspective softened. My mood lifted. And it reminded me that sometimes the quickest way to shift our energy is to shift our state. So whether it's a genuine laugh, a smile, or even simply softening your expression, notice what happens. Sometimes the smallest change creates the biggest shift. The third technique is one that I use all the time without even thinking about it. Humming. Now, if you've ever heard me sing, you'll understand why I hum instead. I can never quite remember all the lyrics, and I'm not nearly confident enough to break into a song wherever I happen to be. So, humming has always felt natural to me. What I found interesting is the explanation Yoko gives for why this may be so effective. She talks about the gentle vibration created when we hum. If you'd like to try it right now, just make a soft humming sound. And notice what happens. You may feel a subtle vibration around your face, around your nose, between your eyes, or even throughout your head and chest. Let's try that one more time together. Just notice where you feel the vibration. Maybe around your nose, your cheeks, your throat, or somewhere else entirely. There's no right or wrong. Just notice. Yoko believes this vibration helps us reset and rebalance our energy. And honestly, when she explained it that way, a lot of things started making sense for me. Because I've always noticed that humming lifts my mood. It helps me feel calmer, more present, more settled, even if I never really stop to ask why. One thing Yoko suggests is choosing something upbeat or uplifting and humming it quietly to yourself. You don't need to sing loudly. You don't need anyone else to hear it. In fact, you can do it while walking, while waiting, or whenever you need a small reset during the day. It's simple, it's private, And it may be one of the easiest ways to shift your energy wherever you are. The next technique is one that your body may already know how to do naturally. Yawning, or taking a deep sigh. Yoko points out something interesting. She has noticed that when people enter a space that feels heavy or stagnant, they often start yawning. Maybe you've experienced that yourself. You walk into a room or spend time in a particular environment, and suddenly you can't stop yawning. It's an interesting observation. And whether that's because of energy, stress, tiredness, or something else entirely, the response itself can be very useful because a yawn naturally creates a release, and so does a deep sigh. This is actually something I use quite intentionally, especially during self healing. Whenever I'm feeling heavy, overwhelmed, or carrying something I no longer need, I'll take a slow, conscious breath in and then let it go completely. Not a polite little sigh, a real one. The kind where you feel your shoulders drop and your whole body soften. And what I've noticed is that when I yawn, I almost always follow it with a deep sigh. So now I think of it as a reminder. Yawn and release. Yoga suggests imagining that you're breathing out whatever heaviness you've picked up throughout the day. Again, you don't have to force yourself to believe anything. Just try it. Take a breath in and let it go. As if you're releasing tension, stress, worry, or anything else, you're ready to set down. Sometimes one deep sigh can change the way an entire moment feels. The next technique is incredibly simple and, according to Yoko, incredibly powerful. Just say, "Thank you." Now, I know it sounds almost too simple. And if someone had told me years ago that saying thank you could help shift my energy, I might have raised an eyebrow. But the longer I work with energy, the more I understand what Yoko is pointing to here. Gratitude changes something, not necessarily the situation, but the way we experience it. For example, there are times when I look around my house and all I can see is what hasn't been done yet. The things that need cleaning, the things I haven't gotten around to, the endless list of tasks waiting for me. And if I'm not careful, I can start feeling frustrated by all of it. But then I pause and I remind myself, I have a home. I have a place where my family can gather, a place where I can reset, a place where I can welcome clients. And suddenly the energy shifts. The house hasn't changed, but my perspective has. The same thing happens when there's something I haven't accomplished yet. Instead of focusing on what isn't done, I can be grateful that I have the opportunity to do it, that I have the ability to work toward it, that it's even available to me in the first place. And that simple shift often changes how I feel. Yoko describes gratitude as creating a kind of energetic boundary, a state that helps us stay connected to ourselves rather than getting pulled into heaviness. So the next time you're feeling unsettled, try pausing for a moment. Find one thing, just one, and sincerely say, "Thank you." Then notice what changes. The next technique was actually new to me. Even though I spent my formative years in Japan, this was the first time I had come across this particular phrase through Yoko's teaching. The phrase is Kannagara. Kannagara. Now, like many Japanese spiritual concepts, it's difficult to translate directly into English. But one way to think about it is as a reminder to live in harmony with the natural flow of life, to be in alignment with nature, to be in alignment with something greater than ourselves. Yoko describes it as a very high frequency phrase that can help us reconnect with that sense of harmony. And what I appreciate about it is that you don't need to fully understand it for it to be meaningful. You don't need to study Japanese spirituality. You don't need to analyze every layer of meaning. You can simply try it. Kannagara, kannagara. And notice how it feels. For some people, it may simply become a calming word, a moment to pause, a moment to reconnect, a moment to remember that we don't have to carry everything on our shoulders. And even if this phrase doesn't resonate with you, the deeper invitation is beautiful. To pause, to come back to yourself, and to remember that there is a natural rhythm to life that we can choose to move with rather than against. The next practice is one that happens at a much slower pace. And honestly, I think that's part of its beauty. Yoko recommends adding a small amount of natural salt to your bath. Not because more is better, not because it has to be complicated, but simply as a way of creating a more intentional experience of reset and renewal. She specifically suggests natural salts rather than highly processed table salt, and only a small amount is needed. What I like about this practice is that it encourages us to pause, to slow down, to let the day come to an end. Salt has long been associated with purification and cleansing in many cultures, including Japan. In Japanese spiritual traditions, it's often used in rituals connected with purification and creating a sense of freshness and clarity. Whether you view that spirituality energetically or simply as a meaningful ritual, I can see why Yoko recommends it as a way to reset after a difficult day. And while I don't have a personal story to share about salt baths just yet, I have to admit it's something I'm curious about trying once I have a deep soaking tub in my bathroom. Yoko also mentions another variation, adding a small amount of sake to the bath. It's not something I would try, but I thought it was interesting because sake holds a special place in Japanese culture and traditions. Whether you choose a salt bath, a warm bath, or another calming end of day ritual, I think the deeper message here is the same. Create a moment to release the day, to soften, to unwind, and to allow yourself to begin again tomorrow with a little more clarity and ease. The next practice is one of the simplest on Yoko's list. Open a window. That's it. Sometimes we look for complicated solutions when what we really need is fresh air. Yoko recommends opening windows and creating a flow of air through the space whenever possible. Ideally, opening more than one window or a window and a door so the air can actually move through the room. And honestly, this is something I do all the time. Living here in Toronto, our winters can be long. There are months when it's simply too cold to keep windows open for any length of time. So every year, there's this wonderful moment when the weather starts to change, and not quite spring yet, but warm enough. And one of the first things we do is open all the windows in the house, every single one. We let the air move through, we let the house breathe again, and it feels amazing. The whole space feels lighter, fresher, more alive. Now, if opening windows isn't possible, Yoko suggests another approach. Move the air, use a fan, turn on a ventilation fan. Even circulating the air with an air conditioner can help, because the goal isn't really the window itself. The goal is movement. When the air feels stagnant, a space can feel stagnant too. And sometimes simply getting the air moving is enough to completely change how a room feels. So if you're feeling stuck, heavy, or a little unsettled, before you do anything complicated, try opening a window. You might be surprised by what shifts. The next technique involves something many of us respond to instinctively: sound. Yoko talks about using sound as a way to shift the atmosphere of a space. This could be bells, tingsha, singing bowls, crystal bowls, or any instrument whose sound helps you feel more clear, present, and settled. This is actually something I use in my own practice. Before a client arrives, I often use tingsha to help set the tone of the space. It's one of several things I do to prepare the room, but there's something about that clear, resonant sound that immediately changes the atmosphere. And every now and then, even when no one is coming, I'll find myself reaching for the tingsha hanging in my space. I'll strike it gently and let the sound travel through the room. The vibration lingers. The space feels calmer, more settled, more intentional. Yoko's point is that sound has the ability to shift the feeling of a space very quickly. And once you start paying attention, you'll probably notice that certain sounds affect you differently than others. The same idea applies to fragrance. Yoko recommends finding a scent that feels clear, fresh, or uplifting to you. For me, that often means essential oils, especially when the whole family is dealing with a cold or just feeling a little run down. It's not that the scent magically solves everything, but it changes the atmosphere. It lifts the mood. It creates a feeling of comfort and support. And sometimes that's exactly what we need, whether it's sound, fragrance, or a combination of both. The invitation is the same. Create an environment that helps you feel more like yourself. The final practice Yoko mentions is Reiki. And as a Reiki teacher, this is the one area where I can speak most directly from my own experience. Yoko explains that Reiki practitioners often learn additional methods for clearing energy, working with intention, and creating energetic boundaries. Some Reiki traditions use symbols. Others have specific practices for helping us reset, refocus, and reconnect with ourselves. But for me, one of the greatest gifts Reiki has given me isn't a particular technique, it's awareness. Over time, Reiki has helped me become more aware of my own energy, more aware of how different environments affect me, more aware of when I'm feeling balanced and when I'm not. It's not that I walk around analyzing every space I enter, quite the opposite. It's more that I notice things sooner. I notice when I need rest. I notice when I need to step outside for fresh air. I notice when I've taken on stress that isn't mine to carry. And because I notice it sooner, I can do something about it sooner. Whether that's self-healing, taking a few deep breaths, opening a window, or using one of the practices we've talked about today. I think that's what I appreciate most about Yoko's message in both part 1 and part 2. None of these practices are about becoming afraid of heavy energy. They're about becoming more aware, more intentional, and more connected to yourself. Because when we are connected to ourselves, it's much easier to recognize what supports us and what doesn't. And that awareness, all by itself, can be incredibly powerful. As we come to the end of this video, I hope one thing stands out. None of these practices are complicated. In fact, most of them are incredibly simple. A clap, a smile, a hum, a deep sigh, opening a window, listening to a sound that helps you feel more settled. And yet sometimes the simplest practices can create the biggest shifts. What I love about Yoko's teachings is that they remind us that we don't always need to do more. Sometimes we simply need to become more aware of ourselves, more aware of our surroundings, and more aware of what helps us return to balance. For me, Reiki has been a wonderful way to develop that awareness. And not because Reiki makes you special, and not because you suddenly gain more extraordinary ability, but because it teaches you to pay attention, to notice, to listen, to become more connected to yourself and the energy around you. And over time, that awareness becomes part of your everyday life. If learning Reiki is something you've been curious about, I invite you to explore it. Whether you are interested in self-healing, supporting family and friends, or simply developing a deeper connection with yourself, Reiki can be a beautiful practice. And if you'd like to learn more about Reiki training through Japan Reiki Association, you'll find information below. I'd love to support you on that journey. And we have many certified Reiki teachers around the world who will love to support you as well. Before we finish, I'd love to hear from you. Which one of these practices resonated with you the most? Is there one that you're excited to try? Or perhaps you already have your own way of resetting your energy when life feels a little heavy. If you do, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. One of the things I enjoy most about this community is learning from each other, and your experiences may help someone else who is watching as well. And if you haven't seen part 1 yet, be sure to watch that video too. In part 1, we explored what Jaki is and 5 places where heavy or stagnant energy can collect in the home. Together, these 2 videos create a complete picture, understanding the energy and then learning practical ways to work with it. If you'd like to come back to this video later, feel free to subscribe so it doesn't get lost and you can find it whenever you need it. Oh, and if YouTube is showing the hype button for you, feel free to tap that as well. It helps more people discover these teachings and helps our community continue to grow. Thank you, as always, for spending this time with me. And thank you to Yoko for sharing these practices and inspiring this conversation. If you'd like to watch the original video, I'll leave the link below. Take good care of yourself. Keep noticing what helps you feel lighter, more balanced, and more like yourself. And I'll see you in the next video. ありがとうございます。